I often say, like, women are here to make the world fruitful. We are here to, as a blessing, an expression of blessing.
Yeah.
But just as we can be that, we also have a power of destruction.
Yes.
You know, and we see that, you know, with our monthly process of, like, you know, letting
Yes.
go and menstruating. You know,
Yes.
but the point of destruction, that power of destruction, is so that something new can be reborn.
Mhm. Hi everyone, this is Raina Carrillo with Purpose and Passion. I'm really excited today, but before I introduce my beautiful guest, I want you guys to go to YouTube channel. I want you to type in Luxe Media Studios. I want you to like, comment, and subscribe. Why? Because it's important to know how I'm doing and what do you think about our guest, or do we need a part 2, things of that nature. You are valuable to Luxe Media Studios and of course myself, Raina Carrillo, okay? So today we have Anabel Vizcarra, which is I love to roll the R's because my name is Raina Carrillo, you know? And so she's a tutor and a teacher. One thing that captured me was womb, like the womb, wisdom mentor, and the grief workshop. She works with people that are grieving, and she does workshops for people as well. So being a gang interventionist in the city of Inglewood and LA County, a lot of people in our communities lose loved ones, whether it's gang violence, gun violence, car accidents, things of that, overdosing. And we don't know how to grieve correctly. So we drink, we do drugs to try to suppress our feelings and emotions. So today we have Anabel, and thank you for coming today, because for me, this was a spiritual connection. Like you have no idea. And I remember telling you, I don't care, like we'll figure a way how we're going to get you. I will be patient. And look, patience is a virtue. I got my girl Anabel here on Purpose and Passion.
Yes, thank you.
So I'm
much.
excited. So thank you. So can you take the viewers down memory lane? Where are your family from and where were you born and raised?
Ah, beautiful question.
Yes, right. We need to know the history.
Yeah, the history is I was born here in Torrance,
Mhm.
and my mom then would take us back to Mexico. So I'm
Yes.
from Sinaloa, a small town called Cosala.
Nice. Okay.
Yeah, and I grew up there until I was 9 years old.
Mhm.
And then we were here. So we had, like, my grandmother, my dad's family was living here.
Yes.
And at 9, came here, and that's when my father, he was murdered. And that's kind of where my story begins, really, because that was that shattering moment that just completely takes your life in a different direction. And we stayed here, and I've been here ever since.
How old were you when your father was murdered?
It was in December, so I turned 10 in January, so 10 years old.
Wow.
Yeah, to be 10.
So I don't want to dig too deep into it, but I do want to understand, as a 10-year-old, how did it feel to lose your father?
Yeah, that, I I don't often talk about it, and I am talking more about it now just because of the grief work and how relevant it is to that. But at that age, I realized that I actually didn't realize what was happening.
Mhm.
For me, it was simply something really confusing, a very confusing time. And what I realized later when I turned 14, and that's actually when I realized, like, my dad's not coming back.
Yes.
That I realized I had just suppressed it. I turned inward. I became very internal. And so it really shifted my reality. But at that age, I didn't realize,
Yes.
what was really happening. We don't really know about death. People don't talk about death.
Yes.
Or, I just felt like, oh, my dad will be back later. A part of me, believed that. So, yeah.
I knew when I lost my great grandmother, she was pretty much a mother figure, right? Because my mom was young when she had me. So my mom would work, and then I would always be dropped off to my great grandmother's house, and then, go to school, pick up, back to great grandmother's house. When I remember being a little kid too, maybe 11 or 12, and when she passed away, we didn't get to see her. We saw her like that one time.
Mhm.
She passed away, and then we didn't see her. It was like an empty house, right?
Mhm.
And then we got to see her when she was in the casket, which was not traumatizing, but I wasn't prepared for it
Mhm.
because I'm just like, that's not what I remember, or she doesn't look the same. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I cried, but life went on. But when I turned around 14 or 15 years old, I guess we become a little more mature and we realize what happened, right?
Mhm.
And then around 14, 15, that's when I started reflecting of missing my great grandmother.
Wow.
Like, wow, if she was here, life would be easier. Or if she was here, I would have somebody to talk to.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's like that's the reason why I asked, because it makes me think about when I was a child losing my great grandmother.
Yeah.
You know.
And I think that you're speaking to it so well of like that emptiness. When
Yes.
we lose a loved one, there's an emptiness now where their physicality was.
Yeah.
And there's an aspect of that that doesn't know how to reconciliate that.
Mhm.
And I think being that young and then coming into 14, 15,
Yeah.
that's actually like a rite of passage for everyone, right? For
Mhm.
teenagers. This is
Yes.
when we're going from kind of that more innocent childhood into now realizing, wow, I'm an individual out in this world. Our hormones are raging through,
Yes.
all these emotions. And that's where we need guidance the most. And I think
Mhm.
that maybe I wonder how that's connected to also realizing, well, who is here? Who can I rely on, and who has
Yes.
loved me
Mhm.
and can guide me through this now? So it's
Yeah.
it's really fascinating.
It is, because like I've never went to a grief workshop, period, and so for me, before we go into more of your story, um, like I know I have one story that, like, I wish I would have had a grief workshop or somebody to speak to, because in this situation, I had somebody that I love so dearly, and I was he got murdered. And God, and I always say God because that's who I pray to. We call him Jesus, but I call him Yahshua, his true
Mhm.
name. And I remember getting, like I said, this gift from God, and I woke up that morning and I called my friend, and I told him, I was all like, whatever you're gonna do, don't do it. And I was blowing up his phone, blowing up his phone, blowing his phone, and he did not pick up. He needed to face some people to clear his name, and I had a bad feeling.
Mhm.
And he was murdered that day.
Wow.
So years later, his uncle explained to me the reason why he didn't pick up his phone. Because before he went to go handle his business to clear his name, he met with his uncle. And he told his uncle, like, he didn't pick up the phone because he knew I would change his mind.
Wow.
And he did not want to do that. He already had in his mind, waking up in that morning, what he was going to do to clear his name. And so fast forward, he was murdered, and then LAPD lied to the person that wasn't involved in his murder, but that was involved in a murder that I was shot with this individual, right? And so when my friend was murdered, the cops lied and said I was going to testify against the gunner, saying I was going to testify.
Mhm.
So these law enforcement that are supposed to protect and serve put my life on the line. But thank God I know people in this gang world that can inform me of things, right? Which is important, because if it wasn't for them, I would have never known that they put a hit out on me.
Wow. Wow.
And so I was able to clear my name, like this is not no, that is a lie. I don't know who did this. I don't know who did what. I just want to get out of this situation. So after all of that, everything was over at the court and everything was over. But I didn't get a chance to grieve. I did not get a chance to grieve. And I had to deal with it like I've always dealt with it in the gang culture of just sucking it in, right?
Mhm.
And not dealing with it. Whether Sometimes once in a blue moon, you deal with it by just hanging out with homies and drinking and getting, excuse my language, fucked up, right? To cry and let it all out. Or things of that nature, and or to party it off, right? Party, like so you're numb.
Yes.
That you don't feel the pain that you know that's in the back of your mind. So when I think about the grief workshop, I think about how I've lost so many loved ones and never got a chance to grieve. And like we tell people in the gang intervention world is we just deal with it. And people are like, but how can you deal with it? It's not natural to deal with it, right? To just put a Band-Aid on it, right? But we learn how to cope with it that way, which is so not natural, right? We should be able to grieve. And so, you know, when you went to high school, did you plan, was this your dream job or career, you know? That's why I had to go back to high school.
To keep you way back.
Yes, I had to.
Yeah. No. Actually, when I got out of high school, I went into real estate.
Okay.
And so then I'm the oldest of four. So when my dad was gone and then mom decided to be here and raise us here, she's a very meek, beautiful woman, but very, you know, soft, gentle. This is not me in high school. And so it was almost like, you know, and I don't know if you're the oldest or not.
Yes,
but,
I am.
Okay,
the firstborn.
there you go. So you understand
that leadership role.
You understand that. Then having being the oldest of four, it was sort of like, okay, what are we gonna do to make sure that we're okay? You know, and all that, and that they had opportunities that I didn't have because I was the oldest, and my job was to step up, right? And so I went into real estate and I loved it and made my career out of real estate. I had my own brokerage, you know, and kind of did my thing. And my family was like working there. So my siblings, you know, doing nothing but working there.
Yes, I get it.
And until, you know, 2007, when we experienced the financial crisis. And so that kind of really took the carpet from under me and just really shook up so many of the beliefs that I had formed up until then, the values, right? For me, it was about the American dream, making money, having the house, having the cars, and, you know, helping my family. And so that brought into question so many things. And it made me realize that although I was doing all of these things, I was also a workaholic. I was so controlling because I had to have everything under control. And also that respect that I felt that I had from my family was money based. Because as long as I could pay them, they respected me and they listened to me. And so once all of that was gone, I was also recently married and had my child. And Abraham is his name. He's 18 now. So time flies. And when he was about 1.5 when we separated. And so for me, it really became about if that was not the answer, because I thought that I was living out, like I was showing up for the assignment, you know, and if that wasn't, that could be taken away from me so quickly, something that I had worked so hard for. What was really the meaning of life? What was really success? What was, you know, so I started questioning these things and then, you know, to back up, right? When I turned 14 and I had this little episode during the summer where, you know, I had this crush on this boy and I was so in love with him. And then he tells me, oh, I'm not coming back. I'm not going to the high school. You know, we're going to because my girlfriend got pregnant. And, you know, this is at 14 years old.
So he got somebody pregnant at how old?
At 14.
Oh, my God.
Yes, exactly. So I was so heartbroken. But, you know, that was actually what touched and triggered the grief that I had around my dad. Because through that heartbreak, I actually tapped into something and I cried the rest of that summer. Like I literally spent those 2 months crying and I didn't know what was going on. But what emerged from those 2 months was that I went into high school a completely different person. You know, where I was very internal. I was bullied. I experienced all of these things, very nerdy. I sort of went into like, okay, that's it. My dad's not coming back. No one's coming to save me. and I've got to figure it out. And so that's the mentality that I went into high school with. And even in high school, I was always looking for, like, where is God? You know, like what questioning, like, how can God allow something like this to happen? You know, and all of these things. So I went through so many religions trying to find God, you know, trying to, someone baptize me, please. Give me a home, you know? And so that was happening at the same time that I was stepping into this leadership role in my house and kind of becoming mom, even to my mom. And so you know, that whole thing shattered when the financial crisis came, because everything I had formed, all the beliefs, all the things was just gone. There was nothing. And I remember just seeing my son, and this was kind of like that turning point for me. We used to go, he used to love I don't know if you ever went, what was it called? Hop's Hut, I think it was called, the restaurant. It's like,
say that again?
Hop's Hut.
Hop's Hut.
Yeah, they used to have these amazing pies.
Yeah.
And so they used to have this Snickers pie.
Yeah.
And my son loved this Snickers pie. Can you believe that? At 1.5, I was feeding him
That's okay. That was back in the days. It wasn't that bad back then.
I've forgiven myself. And so anyway, we used to go there, and that was like our little me time, you know. And I went up to buy this pie. You know, it was like, I was just feeling like crap. And I get up to the thing and I order the pie, and my card gets declined. And it was like $7, I think, for this pie, but it gets declined. And it was just like this moment that I was just like, I can't like, even afford $7 to spend with my, you know, like to be with my child, because it was more of an emotional thing. And I start crying, and this kind gentleman behind me, you know, he's like, I will pay for your Snickers pie.
Yeah, poor baby. Yeah, I would have did that too. I'd have been like, I'm paying for it. Don't worry about it. Yeah.
And then I'm sitting in the, you know, in the parking lot with my son eating this pie, just crying, you know, because I cannot believe where I am in this moment, you know. And so in that moment, I was looking at him and just wondering, what am I going to teach him? What am I going to teach this little boy that success is? And like, where to invest his energy, and like all of these things. So that's actually where I started my healing journey. And then, of course, grief sort of became a big portal for me, because realizing how deeply losing my father had shaped me and affected me, and how I was carrying so much of that internally. Because like you said, we kind of, you know, especially like I feel anyway in the Hispanic world and community, we're very, you know, it's like, get over it. Like, you know, we see this resilience.
That
it's like,
tough
you
love.
shouldn't feel anything.
Tough love.
And you're praised for it in a lot of ways, because that makes you strong, you know? And so it was all these different cultural conditioning things I had to let go of and see what was really there. And for me, that has been the biggest blessing, because I've realized that the more that we grieve what we have lost, the more that we make space for new life. You know, and and it's a beautiful way to honor what we have lost, who we have lost, because now something life-giving can emerge from that emptiness, that empty space that we touched on earlier. And so that's, you know, that's the grief workshops. It's an opportunity for us to come together as community and to really go there, you know, to touch those places that day to day we're not allowed to. I mean, I feel like for so many of us, the car is our therapy, right? Where we're like singing and screaming and crying. But so this is a place where it's like, okay, I often tell the ladies there, because right now it's women only, you know, but I often tell them, it's like, the uglier you can allow yourself to be, the more truth you're going to touch. Because that's where we find our true beauty. You know, that's where we find God is always holding us, you know, no matter what and it's also about like knowing that so many times we try to be the same, you know, when we have a great loss, it's like, I'm going to get back to normal, or I want to be back to normal. It's like, there is no normal. Something terrible has happened, and now it's shaped you. And that new shape is what, you know, we want to cultivate, instead of trying to go back to something that's an impossible task.
Wow. So tell me the story of how you found Jesus.
Or how for me?
Yeah, both.
Yeah. So for me, it's this beautiful journey, and like I said, I went into the religions, right?
Yeah, because that's what I want to know. Yeah, because I'm looking at the cross, and I'm just like, I need to know.
Yes, and finding this longing. I think one of the beautiful things that I love about working with women and just women in general that I adore is that I feel that we all carry this deep yearning for devotion.
Yes.
And it's not often that it can be expressed because it's judged as well, and we also have these different type of feminist movements that are corrosive in a lot of ways.
Yes.
They've supported, and I think that there's beauty in them, there's gifts that have come through it, but I do believe that we are in an age and time.
It's a new
right
agenda
now.
It's a new agenda now, and it's not the original feminist movement.
Exactly. It isn't about empowerment. It's about distraction.
Yes.
And I think that when I sit with women and we're in these very authentic places, like there is that yearning for devotion, that yearning to really be in communion with something divine. And then, that kind of leads us into the womb, that womb wisdom that you mentioned at the beginning. Because it really is about returning to that intelligence of life. And I often say, like, women are here to make the world fruitful. We are here to, as a blessing, an expression of blessing. But just as we can be that, we also have a power of destruction.
Yes.
And we see that even with our monthly process of letting go and menstruating. But the point of destruction, that power of destruction, is so that something new can be reborn. And I feel that often we're just so disconnected because, whether it's through religion or conditioning, the woman has been cut off from her spiritual power in a lot of ways.
Believing Before Seeing, a new bestseller by Candace Barr. Order your copy today.
And it's a journey to reclaim that, because it's going into, like, first of all, to include our bodies, that our bodies has an intelligence that has been woven from the divine. It isn't separate, it isn't separate of God. And so, and returning to that and returning the sacredness of it as well, that our sexuality is sacred when we hold it sacred, when we honor it.
I agree.
And also it's used and it's sold, and it's all of these different things. And so for me, it's been a journey to come into Yeshua, into that embrace, and into that Christhood of what is alive in us, in our spirit. It's really been having to crawl through the muddy that is human as well. That to realize that if I am to embrace and live out this spirituality, it also involves the responsibility to incarnate it, to bring it into the flesh. Not just I am flesh and that is spirit, and we operate separately. That's for Sunday, and this is for Monday through Saturday. But rather to really bring both and marry and create that union. That sacred union, that I am holy in every moment, I am human in every moment. And I often say that's like, whenever I meet someone's God, I am meeting them as I meet you. Yes. Because I don't want to hear about your God. Because sitting with you in conversation tells me so much about
you.
It's like how embodied is it? Because we can get so distracted with context, right? It's like stories like, oh yeah, this would be ideal. It's like, I feel that we are at a time where we're being asked to bring it into our homes, to practice it, to bring forgiveness into all the places that are hurting, the places that we've hurt others. Because there's also this little addiction to be the martyr and the victim, right? Where it's like, well, we've been the villain many times, and there's no shame or guilt around that when we can utilize it to create more love for ourselves and care for others.
Wow. You know what? I think it was, if if I'm correct, yeah, this weekend. When you have a bunch of kids, your brain cells kind of like are gone. So, somebody reached out to me, was like, Raina, I thought you were Christian. Why did you baptize your twins? And I said, well, my husband is Catholic, and right now I'm practicing as just a Christian. I'm just building a relationship with God, learning the Bible and having that relationship. But at the same time, I'm in agreement with my husband to baptize my children, because one reality is that when I was Catholic, it was religion. It wasn't a relationship with God at all. I felt empty every Sunday. I would just go to church every Sunday because I didn't want to go to hell. I was partying, doing all kind of crazy sinning Friday, Saturdays, and then Sunday hangover. Oh Lord Jesus, please forgive me for our sin. So it was more of a religion when I was Catholic, and then I told my friend, I said that I believe in Christ. Even when I was Catholic, I believed in Christ. I said Catholic is just a word that means universal. That's all Catholic means, universal, okay? But the reason why I agreed to also baptize my twins is because my 3 other children were baptized Catholic. And then one thing that people don't understand is that when you're not baptized Catholic and you pass away, you cannot come through the church. And so for me, my Christian church is small. And if I were to pass away tomorrow, my church couldn't hold my funeral. So my place of resting, as the crossover funeral preparation would be at St. John's Catholic Church with my pastor speaking for me. You know what I mean? And then one thing my pastor did tell me is like, don't look down on, Catholics. People always, that's the reason why the Christians and Catholics kind of like clash, because somebody always think somebody's better than the next because of what the Bible says. But one thing he helped me understand was that there are cousins. They just do things differently, but there are cousins. So never put somebody down because they're not in your faith journey. And so for me, that was my answer to her. Like, I'm doing it because I'm in agreement, It doesn't make me a bad person. All my children are now, I can say they're baptized Catholic. And if, they were to cross over tomorrow, we're going through St. John's, And it's my family, it's my family church. It was my church at one time. I got baptized there. I made my communion there. I had my quinceañera there. I got married there. I baptized, now I can say baptized all my kids there. And so when I met God was in 97. So when I was molested at 5 or 6, that's when I didn't believe there was a God, because I'm all like, if there's a God, he wouldn't have allowed this to happen to me. But when I reflect back, it's so easy to blame God for everything, but we never blame the devil, because we just think like he doesn't really exist. Only God exists. But in the Bible, it says Lucifer does exist, and he comes to kill, steal, and destroy. So in our brains, when something bad happens to us, or when we lose a loved one to cancer, we always say God needed an angel, or God took them so early. No, God doesn't have to give you cancer for you to cross over to the next life. You know what I mean? But God allows things because we, as humans, his children, has distanced ourselves from him. So if you're my daughter and I'm telling you stop going out partying, eventually I'm just going to sit back and be like, all right, do your thing. You know what I mean? Allow you to not self-destruct in a bad way, but as a parent,
have your experience.
It's just to have these experience, and it's up to you to learn from them, right? And so, so I reflect back in 97 when I was almost shot in the face. It was a spiritual awakening, and till this day, I tell people I am a Christian, but I will never ever talk bad about the Virgin Mary. Because she was in my spiritual awakening. Jesus didn't show up, the Virgin Mary did. And then the second time around, when I was shot in the truck, we crashed into a church, and I was like knocked out from the crash, right? And then all of a sudden something woke me up. Something. And I believe it was her. The reason why I say it was her is because when I woke up, it was like something like spiritual, like wake up, wake up, wake up. And I'm like, doze off, like what? And I look in front, and we crashed in front of a church, a Catholic church. The Virgin Mary's Guadalupe's freaking mural was right there. And as soon as I had seen it, my eyes, I was up. And then when I was up, I looked to the left, and there goes the gunner coming. I couldn't see because, you know, when you get that whiplash, you could see the shadow, right, of the person with the gun. And I just remember saying, start the car, start the car. We got away from the person. So for me, the Virgin Mary is very sacred to me. You know, I have a bond with her. You know, when I pray, I always pray to Yahshua, but I always make that connection. And the extra story is when I became a mother, I couldn't bear children. So I kept saying, God, like, us women are supposed to bear children. But when I read in the Bible, it doesn't say all women are going to bear children. Being pregnant is a blessing. Not every woman is going to be blessed with that opportunity. So I read it. I didn't like it. So I was like, no, God, I need one at least, right? And so I remember going to the Catholic Church, bringing the Virgin Mary her flowers and saying, Virgin Mary, I know you sit with Jesus, your son, and I just need you to send a prayer to him, just in case, because I know he got so many prayers to answer. But if you could just slide this one in, I just want to be blessed with one child. I don't care if it's just one. I just want one seed of mine here, because I am a woman, and I have a womb, and I deserve to be a mother. And then, boom. And then I went to where the crucifixion was, and I bowed down like a Muslim. And I told God, please give me one baby. I promise to you. And that was my promise. I promised to raise him or her to know who you are, to give my child back to you, to know who you are. Girl, I got pregnant 3 months later with twins.
Wow.
That's what I said. So that was my gosh, you know, like, that's how I know people are like, he's fake. He's like Santa Claus. I'm like, no, there's so many ways he showed himself.
There's so much
spiritually.
evidence.
Yes, spiritually.
Yes. And I love that. I thank you for sharing that story, because that's beautiful. You know, bringing Our Lady into the conversation, because that's, and essentially, I feel like that's the aspect that so many of us are disconnected from. It's the feminine face of God. That, you know, the mother aspect of it, because it's almost like she's always there, but she's in the background. You know, she's like
on the side.
And you know, she's our Lady of Mercy, right? So it's like, okay, if nothing else works, let me go and ask her. And there's beauty in that. There's beauty in that. And I think that's exactly what you said about, you know, the cousins, right? Because that division, we're so in this addiction to know, like, give me the answer now. I need to know. That we form these belief systems and these organizations and structures, and it says, if it doesn't go this way, that it doesn't exist. It's bad. You know, it's good and bad. And that is such a, for me anyway, it feels like you cannot encapsulate God into any belief system. You know, even our words are limiting, you know, to explain, like, when we have those spiritual communion experiences, it's like, how do you articulate that? How do you encapsulate something that cannot be expressed? Only experienced.
Or seen sometimes.
Or seen. Like, and then I'm like,
God is like the air. We can't see it, but we sure feel the air.
Feel it, exactly. And that's that life-giving essence, where it's like, you have things that anchor you to your family, to your culture, to, you know, we have those things because they're necessary in our day-to-day. And yet it's also knowing that there's something so unfathomable that you cannot, no matter how much our little brain tries to, can articulate it or express it, or, you know, make it anything. And so I'm a big also devout of Our Lady, because I have have so many experiences like the one that you shared. And I do believe that is also an aspect of our feminine coming back into reunion with that God essence.
I agree. So before we close, I wanted to know, what is your purpose and passion?
Oh, so there's so many, right? This is the life of a creative. But I'm passionate about a vision, and that vision is that women reclaim their birthright as life givers on this planet, and that place is restored. That we are in service to the divine, but we allow life to move through us, for us. And my purpose is to create context for that, spaces for that, so that women can remember this. Because I always say, I'm not saying anything new. I'm not teaching anything. I am simply allowing the spaces so you can remember what your relationship to that divine is.
Yes.
And so so God can move through you into the world as needed. Because we're all here to do different contributions, into community, into
He
our
brings us
families.
here for his purpose. We just don't know it yet. We just don't know. So we sometimes we live in our purpose and it ain't working.
Well, and that's like living by our will rather than divine will. Right? And so for me, it's like, well, can we become that divine will that we are created to be, instead of our personal will? And and of course that's part of the journey, right? You've got to empower yourself to move out of certain situations and things like that. But ultimately, it's the surrender to that divine mission that we're all here to walk, and whatever that is for any of us, So, I purpose, passion. When I read your little purpose and passion, I was like, this is me all the way. Because that's the true life-giving passion. That isn't lustful, or that's redeemed into that really passion for God.
Definitely. How can our viewers find you on social media?
So, I'm like, these questions, all right. So, Instagram is probably the best way to connect with me. I'm pretty active on there, and that's at anabel.vizcarra. And that's at my website, anabelvizcarra.com, so that any workshop interest or anything like that, any things that are coming up are always on there. And any questions or anything that you want to send over, anything that resonated from this, it's always beautiful to hear back, see what's landing with the community.
Well, I will say, before we end the show, Ms. Anabel, I swear, like, we need a 2-hour show. You know what I mean? Like, oh my God, there's so many things I want to ask and just pick, from your brain. But I will say this, Ms. Anabel, I'm truly connected with you. I would like to collaborate with you, meaning like be of service to you. But I would like for us to connect together, for you to host a grief workshop, a womb wisdom workshop together right here in Inglewood.
Yes,
we have a great, amazing room right there. And, this is a great facility, all in co-working Inglewood. And I want to do that maybe in August if possible, so we can plan ahead, create a flyer, because we need you here in Inglewood so you can touch the South Bay community, whether it's Inglewood, Lenox, Culver City, West LA, Hawthorne, Lawndale, Palos Verdes, Redondo Beach, Hermosa, Compton, Watts, Linwood, right? You know what I mean? And we need somebody like you to tap into our feminine selves, because we're in an era where we're forgetting how to be ladies, how to be soft, because we've been through so much stuff that created us to be hard, right? I also want to share with the viewers, it's okay to want to be married. It's okay to be submissive in the way that the Lord says to be submissive, not to like bow down kind of mentality. It's okay to be married and create a family. You don't have to be a single mom if you don't want to, because we're living in a time where we're living in a society where they're like, feminism is separating the husband and the male out the picture. And I am not down with that agenda because of the work that I've done in gang intervention. And most of the youth that are at risk, 90% of them do not have a father in their life. and the mother has to play the role of a father. They can never be a dad because they're not a man, but they have to play that role and also be a mother. And that's a hard job to juggle, you know? And so I want us to come to a place where when we have children, we can tell our daughters, you're worthy to be a wife. It's amazing to carry a man's last name to continue the legacy of those boys, because we all know the girls are going to get married and change their names anyway. But you know, it's beautiful to have a family. You know, not putting down single moms at all, because sometimes life happens. You get married, you get divorced, and you're a single mom. But what I'm saying is that we need to bring back. It's okay to tell our daughters it's an honor to be a wife, and to live in your feminine self, to be soft, you know, and not to always be aggressive. I guess that's me right there. I'm the aggressive one.
Well, you know, there's a place for it, and this is why these conversations are so crucial.
Yes.
Because I think that perhaps before we had to be in that space of survival. And
Yes,
I know,
and
I'm
that's
a
the
single mom.
survival thing.
Yes,
Yes,
and it's like you don't have space. How can you be soft when you gotta pay bills and you gotta go to work and then you
Yes.
gotta take your
because
kids
you
to school?
jump into the masculine
Exactly.
stuff.
you know,
Yes,
and yet I feel like now it's like we are creating the spaces where at least let us begin creating spaces where we can come and explore
Yes,
that.
yes.
What does it mean to be feminine and soft? What is
Yes.
it? What are these agendas that are anti-family unit that are
Yes.
creating traumatized individuals?
yes,
And we're looking, you know, we're looking at the symptom. We're not looking at the root. And I
Yes.
think that's I would love that.
Yeah.
And I love that. I'm passionate about that.
Yes. Me too. That's why I said this. Like,
restoration of that family unit is so
Yes.
crucial, because that's when you can break down the mother, you
Yeah.
break down the family,
yes,
and you break down society.
Yes.
And now you can control individuals because we're all fragmented and we're all emotional,
Yes.
you know, and all these things. And so that's that. I love that, and thank you so much. And
You're
yes,
welcome.
let's do it, because
Yes.
I think let's begin with the spaces where we can
yes.
talk about
to
these
provide
things
for our
and
community.
grow these seeds.
Yes.
You know, nurture the seeds
Yes.
of this for our girls, for our boys.
Yes.
You know, I often, one last thing I'll say here, but you know, it's like oftentimes I'm a single mom, you know,
Yes.
and so, you know, but I have girlfriends that are single, and, you know, and they're always like, oh, we're the real men, we're the good men. And I was like, women, we raise these boys, you know, because they're
Yes,
entitled,
I hear
and
you.
they're this,
I hear
you
you.
know, and it's like, well, we raised them though.
Yes.
So where do we begin to bring that into healthiness?
Yes.
And it starts with our boys. How
Yes,
are we
it does.
raising them to be with women, to honor women?
Amen.
And our girls, their bodies, you know,
Yes.
their beauty, rather
Just keep
than
it
this,
sacred. Love your temple. Protect your temple.
and
Just
know
don't
it.
give it away. Yeah.
Yes, and know it as like
Yes.
I often say, it's like, you are a temple. You are not a community center.
Hey, I'm gonna use that one. Okay.
It's like, we are not community centers here. You know?
I love it.
We
There's
can
no
start-
in and outs over here, okay?
Yeah, we can start different kind of charities.
Yes.
But this is a temple. You
I
know,
love
family-
that. Oh my God, I need a shirt that says that. Well, thank you so much, Ms. Anabel. This is Raina Carrillo signing out on Purpose and Passion with Luxe Media Studios. Until next time, peace.